Rev up your engines!
Mr. Bob says, I bought a Kia Sorento, the engine shuts off when you stop and wait at traffic lights. Save the battery, the heater blower shuts off too. It's 19 and I'm freezing. The dealer said that they can't reprogram it because it violates NTSB EPA guidelines. What can I do about this? Realize you got one thing. There is a button there that defeats that system, that turns the stop-start system off. Now, unfortunately, you got to press it every time you restart the car. If you start the car and press the button, it won't turn up. But as soon as you turn the car off, start it again, the system starts up again. So you just have to keep remembering to push that button so it doesn't turn off while you're in the cold of Canada where you're freezing to death. So do that. Yes, it's annoying, but you won't be cold. Just remember, when it's cold outside, start the car and push that delete button, and then your car will continue to run and you'll continue to be warm. I guess they really didn't think it that far, selling cars to people in northern Canada, and then they turn themselves off while you're driving when it's freezing cold. You think they could have a better system? It's all computer run, right? They give it a system that, hey, when it's below a certain temperature, it can't shut the car off so you don't freeze to death inside the car. I mean, that's not rocket science, but you can push that button every time. Push the delete button for the stop-start system, and then it won't shut off. And in the summer, if you don't care, leave it on. But like in Texas, we always pushed them because we didn't want them shut off and not blow cold air while we're waiting in the hot sun when it's 100 degrees outside at noon. So just push the delete button every time you drive it, and then you want to make a habit of, start car, push delete button, and then it won't shut off. Guys and such, for the sake of argument, assume every car maker had the same or better quality and longevity of Toyota and Honda. The deciding factor would essentially be price and aesthetics. What car would you get? Would it still be Honda, Toyota? Would you jump to other brands? It might look better. Well, now this is an argument, and I understand. It's not reality because they don't have the quality, and they probably never will. I remember, now this was 35 years ago, I had a discussion with a man who was an extremely intelligent man who was executive vice president of a corporation, and he said, Scotty, Americans will never make cars as good as Toyota's making them. And this was 35 years ago. He knew how the factories were set up, how they were run. He said, we can't compete with quality with those guys because of the way they're set up. And 35 years later, his words still ring true. They aren't. Now, if they were, yeah, how can you make a choice? I did a interview with a Mexican podcast. Now, it was recorded, and he edited it and put it on the air, so I never heard it. I was just answering his questions live with him, and then he recorded it and edited it, so I don't know whatever came out. But his first question to me was, well, Scotty, since all cars are made perfectly today and they never break, how do you pick which one to buy? And I just said, have you ever driven a Jaguar or a Land Rover? It's nonsense. There's many bad cars out there. Fiats, there's a lot of horrible cars out there. And it'll never be that way. Now these corporations are all buying each other out now. Chrysler is Fiat, Chrysler, Peugeot, and they call them Stellantis. You get all these bad companies buying each other up. It's not a good thing for the consumer because they're only going to want to make cars cheaper to make more profit, and they won't get better. They'll probably get worse. So this will never happen. Now, if it did, and you could pick any car the way that they looked, hey, I would want like an old E-Type Jaguar with modern engine and stuff. But that's not going to happen. Here we go, the gift that never stops giving. GM has had to recall 2.6 million more trucks and SUVs for the stupid Takata airbags. Yes, it's never ending. Trucks and SUVs from 2017 to 2014. There's a whole list of them. Too many to list here. You'd be bored. You can look it up. You can see if your car has a recall, if you moved or something. They don't send you the information. All you have to do is go to the National Highway Traffic website, put in your VIN number, they'll tell you if there's any recalls. It's very convenient. You can use your phone, whatever. The problem is they used what are called non-desiccated passenger front airbag inflators. Now, when you buy electronic stuff, it comes with that little bag. Well, that's a desiccant. And what that does is it keeps it dry so the electronics don't get ruined while they're being stored until you buy the things. I mean, you even see it, and sometimes you open up a box of crackers or something, there's one in there, or vitamin pills, and there's one in there. Well, these didn't have any desiccants, so what's happening is they're rusting inside, and those are the ones that if you get in a crash, they can blow up, and if they're rusted, the metal pieces can be like shrapnel. That's from the shrapnel Englishman who invented the shrapnel shell for killing people in battle, not something you want happening in your car and injure you. So here we go again. Of course, GM fought it, but they lost the battle, and now they got to recall 2.6 million more of them where they have to put a new front airbag in. So I guess the saga of the Takata airbags will go on ad infinitum and never stop. If you got one of those, check it out. If they don't get a hold of you, a lot of times they don't get a hold of the people, you get a free airbag. I don't think it ever will end, you know? Well, here we have it. Toyota says they're not affected by this chip shortage because if you know anything about Japanese industry, they plan ahead. They generally plan years ahead, sometimes decades ahead. And they have 54% a hike in profits this year, and they don't have any problems with chips because they said that they have a stockpile of chips that could last as long as 4 months. Like I say, they plan ahead. Now, Nissan and Honda had to cut production because of semiconductor shortages, but Toyota raise their output instead. Now, their chief officer, Kenta Khan, says, we don't see any decrease in production volume due to the chip shortage ourselves, but we do see risks of a shortage in the future. And I guarantee you, they're already going around cutting deals to make sure that they don't have it. They don't think day to day, or in the case of Americans, quarterly reports to the stockholders because they're worried about the stock price. So they're thinking maybe 3 months ahead tops in the United States. Of course, the hilarious thing is, a lot of the chips come from Asia. The Taiwan's TSMC say they're trying to prioritize automotive chip manufacturing, but of course with the COVID, other things went down. The consumer sectors weren't building as much. Now they're ramping back up. And they got to make it for everybody. So you can't get something from nothing. Somebody's going to have to lose out. If they got to ramp up one production, they're going to have to cut down on the other. So Toyota says they're going to expect a profit of the fiscal year that ends March 31st to be 2 trillion yen. And they thought before it was only going to be 1.3 trillion yen. 2 trillion yen is $19.13 billion. So they're making money. There's no arguing that. But it just shows that they plan ahead better. They got things set up better. And they're just at the whim of what's out there. And if something goes wrong, like the American manufacturers, they're stuck. They can't build their cars because they don't have chips. These guys, a little sharper operators there. Jan says, I've been proposed to buy Mitsubishi Mighty Max. What do you think? It's a reliable truck and worth buying. All right, those little bitty Mitsubishi Mighty Maxes were little pickup trucks. They were like competitors to the Chevy Loves and to the little Toyota pickup trucks when they actually were small and not big. And they were very good little pickup trucks. The ones I worked on had carburetors that were very simple. I had a customer that went to the University of Houston who was a computer nerd, and he bought one cheap and he kept fixing it himself and driving it. It was a very good vehicle. Now, they're very old now. They could be completely worn out. And here in the United States, the big problem is getting parts for them because they don't sell them anymore. They never sold that many of them in the United States. You might have a real time getting parts for them. But if you get one cheap and you want a toy to fool around with, what the heck? Because let's say the carburetor goes bad. Well, so the Mitsubishi carburetor, take it away, throw it away, and get like a Weber conversion kit and put that on. It would run better anyway. So, they can be cool little trucks, but don't pay much for them because they don't sold them here for ages, and getting parts could be a real stinker. Bassbone says, Scotty, I leave my car in my work's parking lot and I use a blower to clean the leaves. I come back, my car's covered with sand all over my car. They even got it on the mirrors. You think it can damage anything? How do I clean it? All right. Yeah. Over time, if you rub that sand is like what? Sandpaper. You're going to scratch the paint. You don't want to scratch the paint. So what you do is you want to rinse that sucker off all the time. Get all that sand off without hurting anything. And a very simple thing is to use a garden hose when you get home. Now, don't wash it first. By all means, don't take it to one of those automated car washes. They get the brushes, and the brushes are whacking it, and they're whacking the sand, and they're like sandpaper. And then, of course, some of the sand will be on the brushes for the next car, and it'll sand their car down, too. You just rinse it off. That's what we used to do in Houston when we get the volcanic ash that would float in from Mexico when they had an eruption, or, believe it or not, we used to get sand come in from Africa. When the sand would blow over the Gulf Coast and come down, you wouldn't do anything except rinse it off first. And you don't want to rub it. You just want to rinse it off. It won't hurt anything just sitting there. But you can't rub it off. You got to rinse it off with water first. Well, the electric van battle is beginning. There's now 8 electric vans that can be bought in the United States. 2022 Ford E-Transit electric van series are being launched now. There's 8 of them. They're from GM, Ford, Mercedes-Benz, Volkswagens, Rivian, Bollinger, and Ford now. The 2022 Ford Transit has 126 miles of range, and it's going to be listed at $45,000. Not bad for a commercial vehicle. They're targeting 266 horsepower and has a rear-mounted electric motor. So it's pretty similar to the V6 3.5 liter they put in that has 275 horsepower. Mercedes-Benz has the E-Sprinter, but it only has a range of 104 miles, and they have a cheaper version engine that has a range of 71 miles, so it could carry more because it have a lighter battery, so it can take a bigger load. It's still the problem with these vans are they have a very limited range. I mean, let's face it, that's a pretty limited range for a delivery van. I know these guys driving UPS trucks around here, man, they put a lot of mileage on those things. And this range, yeah, that's probably going to have something to do with the either success or failure of electric vans. Now, Amazon has the Amazon Rivian delivery van. They don't have the exact specifications yet, but they say they're going to have 150 miles of total range, which would be the largest range. And of course, being one of these prime delivery vans, it's tall, it's big, there's a lot of room to put batteries in, and they know they would have to have a higher range because Amazon is delivering so much stuff that they're going to need a bigger range. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. That's going to be the big problem for electric delivery vans. It's going to be the range, really, when it comes down to it with commercial companies. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.